The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, please don't send it to Scrooge at XZone. Send it to me, XZone at XZoneRadioTV.com, on all social media sites, XZone Radio TV. And we're coming to you live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, XZone Broadcast Network, and on Channel 54 on Simul TV. XZone Nation, my guest this hour is a lady that we've had the pleasure of having on the show before. Her name is ELLENA LIEBERMAN, and she is an author, spiritual educator, specializing in Akashic records. She's a consultant, speaker, and vocal artist. Joining me now from the Sunshine State of Florida is ELLENA. And ELLENA, welcome back to the X Zone. How are you doing, dear?
Very well. Wonderful to be here.
Great having you with us. Would you be able to give our audience who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before a little bit of a bio on yourself? Who are you? What are you all about? And of course, that infamous question, what are the Akashic records?
Well, first of all, my background was originally in performing arts and voice, acting. Mm-hmm. So that was very important. Communications was very important. And as I developed, I realized that part of that was a lot of inner search. You know, you're really looking inward. You're looking inward to work through a piece of music. You're looking inward to create a persona and then to reach out to people. But it takes a certain amount of sensitivity. I think that sensitivity actually brought me to search for something very deep inside. And actually, my husband took the course from Mary Parker first, and it seemed so intriguing that I said, when she comes back, I want to take this. And from the first day, it was a 2-day course, there was so much light. There was something so different about it that I came home the first day and I said, this is for me. And this is in 1990.
Wow.
As I came home, I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Somehow I have to do this because it awakens this light inside of people. There was something very different about it. It wasn't psychic. It was just a series of questions which took you back to a deep place in yourself. And that pursuit, that knowing from that day on is what has been the continuum in working through doing all the work in the Akashic records, working with clients, working with classes, watching people come and go and all of this, moving around. But that stayed with me. And of course, I had a wonderful teacher. I was very close to Mary Parker. And she meant a lot to me.
So how did you feel that what you were learning from Miss Parker was changing your life? Was it changing the way you looked at the world? Was it changing your religious philosophical view? What kind of changes did you feel?
The first changes were I was drawn in to this. It was like people revealed themselves in a very deep way. And I also began to accept myself much more, because as people reveal their lives, they become wonderful stories. They're very deep. And often a person does not appreciate their own journey. They're in judgment, or they take on other people's views instead of what they have experienced within their own heart. So when you work in the records, you're restored to this place within your own heart. Now, I have to also add that over the years, whatever people's understanding of source or God, huge variety of people, they became closer to that teaching. They did not depart in any way from that teaching. It returned them to a divine connection in a way that they could understand it. That is another offshoot of moving very deeply into this work or calling.
Fascinating, truly fascinating. What do we know about the creation of the Akashic records, or the very beginning of the Akashic records?
It really goes back a long way, and we use more modern terminology now. We used to say that even the slightest ether in the cosmos registers an indelible impression in it. So you're talking about something that's extremely sensitive. That quote is actually a quote from a book called Jesus the Christ. It's Theosophist. It's put up by the Theosophical Society. And it goes back some ways. But the Akashic records are referred to in the scriptures as a variety of names. And again, it goes back as a recording of all existence or being. But we keep in mind that it also creates. As we move forward on the timeline, it becomes the unified field of all, an archive of all being. Very subtle, filled with a resonance faster than light. So if something is affected in it, then through the resonance and harmonics, somewhere else is very affected by that also. As you understand something, wisdom comes in anything that's harmonized to that tone, so to speak.
So whatever I do on this plane, the theory is that what I do has a ripple effect, and it affects others.
Yes.
Now, does the writing in the Akashic records take note of my actions and who they affected and what the results were?
So the key here is the wording. Does it take note? And the answer is yes. Yes.
Okay.
It does it in an extremely high frequency way, but that way is resonant in any being that lines up with it. So something that is lifted from you starts to be lifted from others.
I remember a story that I was told as a young lad about when you pass, you go to heaven and St. Peter is at the golden gates. And he looks into this big book to see if you've been good or bad and if you would be allowed to enter heaven. I now wonder, as you were talking, if this book that St. Peter looks into was the Akashic records.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And that's in another dimension, another domain. And it's very interesting that the word book it's a more manifest, it's more dense than something that's really spiritual.
Right.
It's our wording for what this is or what it is. And one of the things that one point I wanted to make that struck me is that when you work with the Akashic records for a long time, you don't go anywhere. You don't go up to St. Peter. And the idea of some people may receive that they're reading a book, but it's resonance inside of you that's in a transcendent field. In other words, you are present. Your consciousness is different. Your awareness is different. But there is a sense of, in the lineage I follow, there are other lineages, that I am present. There is an I present. So there's a person who's I am present, yet it's very sheer. It's very not dense. So I'm holding the information. I work through my own personality. I don't have another personality coming into me, which is a distinctive feature about how we work. I'm the one. And when I say our prayer, there's a shift which allows a deepening into this transcendent key where we enter into another world of awareness. So I don't look at something and leave, and so the benefit of that is we bring it in and integrate it. We integrate it through all the energy through our body. We emphasize heartfelt. If it resonates in your heart, we bring it through our body so that what the wisdom that we have gained, what we call information that we have gained, we begin to integrate that in our regular waking consciousness, our personality. It's not far away. It's part of us. So we expand into it.
Stand by, ELLENA. You and I have to take a break. Exonation, ELLENA Lieberman is our guest. Our website is dynamicmanifestation.com. And we'll be back talking more about the Akashic Records on the other side of this short break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. And if you want to get into the Christmas spirit, if you work late at night and you're looking for great radio programming, well, thanks to the good people at Beautiful Mind Coffee, you can listen to Christmas music from, I believe it's midnight until 7 o'clock in the morning. All-time favorites, great songs, kind of brings you back into your youth. And if you're working late and you want to stay on top of things, then I would fully suggest that you drink a cup of good old Beautiful Mind Coffee. For more information about Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. And Beautiful Mind Coffee is available on Amazon.ca. ELLENA Lieberman's my guest, www.dynamicmanifestation.com. ELLENA, before we went to the break, you were saying that you say a prayer.
Yes.
Who do you say the prayer to?
Actually, God.
Okay.
The first, the prayer acts as a shield and a key to connect. And the first paragraph asks God for his shield of truth, basically. And so we're really direct about that, or we have to use the sounds of the prayer. We know that works. Those sounds together are the tones that connect into the depth, into the height that's needed to access that level. So that's who we say the prayer to. There are some other levels of guidance that come in that are like overseers in a sense of the transcendent field. I mean, people say, well, what do I need an overseer or another type of consciousness outside of myself if it's in me? It's in me. So what do I need that for? But it's transcendent into a much vaster field. So that's when we call them masters of the Akashic records, and they're in a higher frequency. So we do work with that, but basically it's between you and God's spirit source.
So when somebody comes to you for a consultation about them with the Akashic records, what can they learn about themselves?
They can learn many things, but the basic end result is that there's a restorative or a return into them feeling that this is my true self. I can accept the true self, the authentic self. And a lot of emphasis is put on lifting off or letting go of things that don't support them. That is not truly who they are, that they can let go of that and begin to build. Our image is always to build from the light that they come from. That's a return to their spiritual core or home, that they're able to create very positively once they've aligned with their innocence, with their sense of being very connected to the creator self within them.
All right. So maybe I missed it, but what can they learn?
They can learn very specific things. For instance, if they're going to be returned, they can look at, look, this is what happened. This is who somebody was in my life. You know, what is the meaning of this? What am I to do with? I don't know what kind of decision to make. Things like that, and then that it can be very specifically laid out, or what they need to let go of, what supports them. And then that gets you into the whole, and this is the season for grace. The field of grace became very apparent through the work in the records. That's why the two are brought together in a lot of our work. If you were to ask in the records, show me the experience of being in the records, just the feeling of it. And then you were to ask, show me, I want to feel what it's like to be in a field of grace. Now, grace is your willingness to let go, to complete, and give that over to the divine and just receive of love in your heart. It's a giving over. That's hard to explain sometimes to people, because they say, what do you mean forgive? Why should I forgive this person? Look what they did. Look what they did in my life. I don't want to forgive them. I don't want to let go of it. So forgiveness does not make someone right or wrong. It means, do you see how that occupies you within? And it leads to anger, or it leads to blame. If you can take that chunk of inward emotion and give that over and say, I can refer to a love that comes in so I can create again. I can live again. I don't know if I release, it's more like a release. If I forgive and release, then I open up a space inside of me where that turmoil isn't going to grab my attention. And I'm going to create from that space. So we work with that in the records work, Akashic Records work.
All right. You say you work in the Akashic Records. What is your job?
Well, when I say we work, my job is to receive, to be neutral, to support, to bring information of all sorts clearly forward, and to appreciate the person, in a sense, to allow them to restore themselves to a place where they have self-esteem and love. A lot of classes have questions around self-esteem, or what would it look like if I were loved? From the standpoint of the records, if you went before the gates of St. Peter,
right?
And it's interesting how people depict the accounting of you did this and you did this and then you did this. That's not what's going on inside of a person. If St. Peter could say, look, this is your life and all your feelings here. And look what happened when this happened. Look, you have wisdom from this here. That's more being, perhaps being is a more appropriate word, being in the Akashic Records. So allowing them to support you with the information. Very important.
Would you say that working with the Akashic Records shows you, or would show someone that there are two sides to the feelings, there's two sides to their life, and not everything that they believe in their life is negative is truly negative?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, many things that people view as being negative may have saved them. It's a good thing that person left you.
Sure.
What would have happened? Or many times the interpretation, particularly in relationships, if you could know what was going on, say there's a woman who is angry at her mother. If you could know what was the struggle inside of your mother, it would completely change the viewpoint of the daughter. So things like that do come up quite a bit.
So what I'm seeing here is that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that what we are doing when we ask for assistance or clarification through the Akashic records is trying to make some semblance of what has happened in our life in order that we can forgive ourselves for feeling negative.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. The forgiveness is of self. The forgiveness is the giving over to something that's way beyond us.
Gotcha.
Infinite one.
Is there anything new in our understanding about the Akashic records? Have we learned anything new?
You know, there's another area that has been brought up. Of course, there's this field of science that has developed a lot of that with the unified field. Mm-hmm. But the other area that we have found has to do with the ancestral lineage. And what we find in that, when we begin to ask questions, when I say we work, we're asking questions to move deeper and deeper. And what we find is it isn't only your direct ancestry that may be influencing you today. It can be whole groups of ancestors. Now, the collective unconscious was originally, for instance, and that's not exactly the same as the Akashic records, but it may be part of it. That was more about what people are collectively thinking at any given time. Now, that is very relevant, especially now. People, you'll find like collective emotions that aren't really yours. You're empathing them or picking them up. If people feel alienated, separated, is that mine, or is it a collective? Now, that's in the present state of what's going on. What we find is in the ancestral, there can be whole belief systems in the groups of people where your ancestors were that are somewhere within you. In other words, we can look very deep. Are they in the cells? Are they in the vibration of the cells? And we can ask that be lifted out. Sometimes people will mistakenly think it's something from their childhood, or mistakenly, if they believe in past lives, they'll say, oh, it's a past life. And many times it's not. It's not really their past life. It's actually from the ancestral groups that your personal ancestors lived in.
Well, let me ask you this question then. And we've got to go for a break in very shortly. So according to the Akashic records, do we live more than one life?
Yes. Yes, we do.
All right, stand by. I've got to hold you on a bit of a cliffhanger here.
Okay.
ELLENA Lieberman's our very special guest. Our website is dynamicmanifestation.com, and we'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Ho, ho, ho. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. ELLENA Lieberman is my guest. Her website is dynamicmanifestation.com. When somebody contacts you, ELLENA, and how long does it take you to connect with the Akashic records?
When somebody contacts me, and then we have the consultation. The first part of the consultation, I actually have a way of calling in the light and setting the space with the person there.
Okay.
So that's the first part. Then we say the prayer, and then after prayer work, which can be quite different from one person to another, except for the prayer to open the records, then if it's on Zoom, there'll be a recording. Most people want a recording nowadays. Some people don't.
Okay.
So it's pretty fast. Yes.
So what is the length of a normal consultation?
There are a number at 1 hour. There are some people who have very long consultations.
Right.
Usually an hour and a half.
It must be very draining on you.
Well, it always amazes me that certain people you could just keep going and going with. There's something going on, and other people are more challenging. But I pace myself as years have gone by. I do pace myself, so it's integrated in my life. It's interesting. sometimes in the years that I've done this, we've done it so there would be concentrations of people coming for consultations, and then you'd have some days off, and then you'd give a class. But now, since every week I give consultations, so it depends what's going on. There's an interesting story about this, though. When Mary Parker first started, her story is a true story. She went up her husband passed away. She went up into the mountains and prayed for a life direction. It was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She was friends with a woman who's also passed away named Alvivian Powers. Alvivian invented aura balancing. And so she was staying with Alvivian Powers. She came out of the mountains, and Alvivian, it was early in Mary's career, Alvivian had booked her solid with consultations. There were no guidelines. We have guidelines for pacing yourself now.
Okay.
And when Mary was finished and time to go to sleep, she'd stand up and knock into a wall. Her energy was so extended. It wasn't only that she was exhausted, she was just sort of out of herself from seeing and doing and being. So it's very important when people do this type of work that they find a true inner balance, an authentic balance for them. It's not how it should be. There's no how it should be. It's really what's going on inside of you to maintain a peaceful equilibrium.
It sounds like you, as an Akashic record worker, perform a very important part of somebody's journey, if they so seek it.
I'd like to think that really is true.
Mm-hmm.
I have received many letters that people telling me as to when they seek my counsel, which is usually a big changes in their life. They need more perspective. And there's certainly people that I see who go to many people or go to therapists or whatever.
Right.
So they want additional perspectives, and they're at crossroads in their lives. And there are other people who want, I now see more frequently. In the beginning of doing this, we only saw people once a year, but now people seek this out more frequently. The times have changed and the climate has changed for people, and we accept that. I accept that. So that's what happens. It does give people deep direction.
Is it hard for somebody to learn how to be an Akashic record like your reader like yourself?
It really isn't. It's much more about the trust and a surrendering to a deeper place in yourself. There's kind of a truth that you let go and just experience where you are with full experience and no judgment. Because people when they begin, they receive in all different ways. Some have feelings, some people get hot, some people get cold, some see pictures, some don't see anything, they hear things. And to stay and understand that there's a development over a period of time which moves you deeper and deeper. Nowadays, you'll hear teachers say, well, what are they telling you?
Right.
If I had heard somebody telling me something when I first started, I never would have done that. That would have scared me. Who's telling me this? That would have scared me. But instead, I received in a different way that was appropriate for me.
How did you receive?
I saw, it was like watching a motion picture, but I could feel it. It was a motion picture. Instead of, occasionally I could hear them talking, but it was more like the feelings in the picture became known to me and I could feel them. The very first person I ever gave we were practicing, part of a consultation to, was a man, and he was angry. He was going through a divorce. And, I didn't know what to expect. So I sat there and said the prayer, opened the records, and I the anger came, the anger jumped. He was just sitting there, but the anger jumped out in the scene. And I went like that. And Mary Parker came over and she said, now just straighten up in your chair and just relax. Now, what are you getting? Describe what just happened to him. And that was the beginning.
Wow.
That's exactly what happened.
Over the years, have you seen the changes in society reflect on the changes of reasons why people come to you for Akashic record readings and as well as your consultations?
Yes. Some things don't. Relationship things have always been there. We have a much greater emphasis now on paths for women, or people call to do different service, women who want to expand into careers.
Right.
A lot. I see healers a lot, or people who went through something where there was a big change, a big opening. And, I talk about this in the book, which is the people in the book are composite, but it's also in my consultations. In other words, something happens that completely does not fit what they've been told to do. And they start to emerge because they feel it more deeply. They have a deeper experience that awakens them. And then that's when they come. That's when they say, what's happening? I get so many ideas, I don't know which to take. And it turns out there's one big umbrella idea, and they're getting facets of the larger idea. Things like that. So there's two more concerns that have come up more recently, and that is how children are being educated in schools,
right,
and what's going on. And the other one, which has to do with aging, or the next generation aging and older, is the care for parents. I mean, by an adult caring for older parents. That's very big now in consultations because people have to resolve their differences.
Yeah. Plus, that's the way it used to be, where
Yes.
parents would be taken care of by their children. And somewhere in society, it was found out, well, you don't do that. You just put them in an old folks' home and you go see them once in a while. And, well, I've got my own life to live. I don't like that very much myself. ELLENA, you and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. And X Zone Nation, my guest this hour is the one and only Akashic record reading lady herself, ELLENA Lieberman. Please visit her website at dynamicmanifestation.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. Don't forget, you can listen to all of the past shows of every one of the shows that have been on the X Zone broadcast network since we started some 20 years ago, without cost to you whatsoever, simply by going to www.xzbn.net. And if you have a show, a podcast, or if you'd like to have a show here on our network, we're always looking for great shows. Send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and I will make sure my good friends at the X Zone Broadcast Network get your information, and they will be in contact with you. ELLENA Lieberman is our guest, www.dynamicmanifestation.com. You've written a book on the principles of dynamic manifestation as received through the Akashic Records. Tell us about that.
One of the most important things about the book, as I study further and further, is that beyond the principles that I received and all the examples that we give and the little vignettes that are in it, as time goes by, I really think that the chapter or the chapters on the declarations are the most significant. When we look at meditations or meditation that is done with the breath, it involves all of them. All of the ancient meditations involve breath and sound, toning. Sometimes it's called a soul song or a soul tone, which is involved in the deepest connection with the divine force, with the vital force. So when you speak something and declare it and define it in the present as being from a very deep place in yourself, you are setting into motion a manifestation that is very similar to creating the world of creation. And this was really brought home recently when I was studying some ancient meditation. The first thing, it was the breath.
Right.
And then it was to develop a song, like a soul song. And then it was utterances, words. So the words are what cause creation, the manifestation, stated in the present. And the declarations are also uplifting. When you are present with them, they are, I live here. This is the feeling I get here. This is what my life looks like. This is what the prosperity looks like in my life. These are what the relationships look. And to build this affirmative picture. If you exclude in affirmation, one of the problems of affirmation is it's too mental. It's not only a mental place, it's a feeling place that you actually step into, that you feel what it does to you. And by looking there, that feeling starts to expand, and there is actually a declaration or a manifestation coming from it. You know, I was looking, when I look back at the book's been out for a while, and I look at the question, did I actually manifest money from it? And not by selling the book. Was there a manifestation of a sum of money from it, which is many people's concern? And actually there was. I actually did acquire a sum of money. It doesn't always look, you don't always know how that will come to you, but it manifests. I manifested certain significant pieces of furniture or antiques. I had pictures that were somewhat at random, and I got somewhat at random antiques, but things like that happen. But actually it's the feeling, the inner, it's always based on the inner feeling and an acknowledgement and a claiming it, an owning of it. So that the vignettes, and we talk about the vignettes in the book, particularly one person who was brought in through marriage. He was expected to be in the financial business, and he couldn't succeed in the financial business. So he had a minor accident, and suddenly there was some alternative healing done, and his world became very vivid, and he realized that had meaning to him. That was his wealth. That was what he wanted to do. So that's an example of actually manifesting and how it comes about.
I would imagine then our own destiny and our future lies within us. And if we need a tune-up, we can ask somebody like yourself to check the Akashic records to see where we're misfiring.
Well, it's an interesting thing when you mention destiny. We don't actually know to what degree the soul plan has created a destiny. It is. But the tune-up is, are we willing to walk the path that destiny takes us to and then expand it and open the doors,
Right.
open the true doors to our destiny? So that's what we look at.
So what is ELLENA Lieberman up to in the very near future? Because our time is running very fast here.
Well, you know, I wanted to talk very quickly about a wonderful thing that happened this week in the organization. I'm a founder in an organization called Akashic Record Consultants International, LLC, and there are partners in it. So the host this time was Rosemarie Swanson, and she received a question to ask everyone in attendance who belongs to the hierarchy organization. And it was a wonderful question for people to ask, whether in or out of the records. And I do attribute it to her receiving it. And this is what it is. What am I to complete before December 30th that will open spiritual doors in 2023 for me? And you can do that. What am I to complete before December 30th that will open emotional doors, physical doors, prosperity doors in 2023 for me? But our focus was on the spiritual doors, and then it would probably lead to these other areas. So
Right.
What are you meant to complete before the next year? Rather than your New Year's resolutions, what are you going to finish off?
Good questions.
They're good questions. Those are the type of questions we would ask in a class to work on. They're interesting.
ELLENA, the time has come when we must say so long. So please let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, how they can get a consultation, and of course, where they can buy your book.
Well, the book is on Amazon, and my website is www.dynamicmanifestation.com, and you can get in touch with me there.
ELLENA LIEBERMAN, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and to you and yours, the very best of the holiday season. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Keep smiling.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful to be here. And blessings to everyone for the new year.
Blessings to you too, my good friend. Exonation, my guest this hour has been ELLENA LIEBERMAN, dynamicmanifestation.com. I'll be back as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Ho, 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 St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.